I am one of those people who grew up on television. For 4 years, I was Laurie Partridge of the Partridge Family.
From the moment Susan Dey first appeared on the Partridge Family in 1970, she captured America's heart with her porcelain beauty and composed presence. But behind that television-perfect smile lived a far more complicated story, unfolding quietly behind trailers, beyond camera flashes, and deep within the carefully guarded walls of her privacy. For decades, Susan Dey refused to feed the celebrity machine. She made startling choices, kept shocking secrets, and eventually vanished, leaving behind a legacy more mystifying than scandalous. Sometimes, things are so secure they become frightening. In a world driven by overexposure, she achieved something rare. She left nothing to the imagination, not by revealing everything, but by vanishing before we could see it all. Now, it's time to tell everything and understand Susan Dey in her true form. Try not to gasp. The casting that shouldn't have happened, happened. Hollywood was polished, rehearsed, and relentlessly competitive, especially in an era when aspiring actresses fought tooth and nail for every screen test. Susan's leap into the national spotlight felt almost accidental, miraculous. At 17, she was a fresh-faced model known for her curious eyes and girl-next-door charm. Not an actress and not trying to be one. But a photo in 17 magazine caught a casting director's eye for an ABC sitcom loosely inspired by the Cowsills, a show about a musical family led by a single mom. They needed someone to play Laurie Partridge. Clever, grounded, graceful. Someone pointed to Susan's picture and said, "That's her." It didn't matter that she had zero acting experience, not one screen credit, no training, no theater monologues. She'd never even faced a film camera. Yet something about her innocence and poise convinced producers she could carry it. She was flown in, handed sides, and thrown into a crash course in performance. The early days were brutal. Susan looked ready to bolt. She didn't know how to hit a mark or project a voice. Her hands trembled, her lines faltered, and directors reportedly exchanged anxious glances. But she listened. She learned. She mirrored her co-stars. Slowly, her natural instinct began to shine. Producers noticed her sponge-like absorption of direction. Still, she was visibly nervous and socially distant. An assistant director recalled wondering whether she even wanted to be there. Off camera, she disappeared into her trailer, avoided lunches, avoided bonding. Some saw immaturity. Others, in hindsight, recognized deeper anxiety. A girl thrust into a life she never asked for. Yet on screen, Laurie Partridge came alive. Confident, witty, magnetic. Viewers adored her. Fan mail poured in. And Susan Dey became America's sweetheart. Though behind the glassy lights and canned laughter, she was still a reluctant star, trying to hold on to herself. On the show, she was calm and composed. Off set, she was painfully shy. A crew member remembered how she'd nod politely, then slip away while castmates like Danny Bonaduce and David Cassidy thrived in the spotlight. Interviews drained her. Autograph signings overwhelmed her. Fame didn't feel like success. It felt like exposure. In the 1970s, social anxiety had no vocabulary. Quietness was mistaken for arrogance. But those who knew her understood. Susan wasn't mysterious. She was protecting herself. Her mother died when she was just 8, a trauma that carved a deep need for emotional control, hard to maintain under the constant glare of a TV set. She arrived early, ran lines alone, and avoided idle chatter. When breaks came, she vanished. When rap was called, she was the first to leave. Like a ghost between takes, one actor recalled. Yet when the cameras rolled, her stillness became strength. Her quiet performance gave Laurie Partridge unexpected depth. Directors gave her more emotional arcs. Her restraint was authentic, not acting, but being. While others chased fame, she used stillness as armor, surviving the chaos of early celebrity from behind a trailer door. Meanwhile, fans wondered about her chemistry with David Cassidy. On screen, it sizzled. Behind the scenes, it sparked. Susan, a teenager, fell for him early. He was rebellious, magnetic, older, part crush, part mystery. She stayed quiet about her feelings, but others noticed. Cassidy later admitted they had a romantic relationship after the Partridge family ended. For Susan, it felt like something real, long-awaited. But Cassidy didn't feel the same. He ended it abruptly, something Susan never quite forgave. Weiss, in his 1994 memoir, he laid bare details of their intimacy. For the private, guarded Susan, it was a devastating betrayal. She felt humiliated, a producer from L.A. Law later said. She never spoke publicly about Cassidy again. She refused Partridge family reunions and declined interviews about those years. For her, the door had shut, and it locked. Beauty standards only deepened the wounds. As a teen idol in the 70s, Susan faced the full force of a merciless camera. She rarely ate on set, favoring salads and black coffee. Her frame shrank. Her costumes needed constant adjustments. Rumors of an eating disorder swirled, never confirmed, but whispered. In 1972, she co-authored Susan Day's Secrets on Boys, Beauty, and Popularity, a guide marketed to teens but full of signs of deeper distress. Advice on being slim, staying in control, always looking perfect. Behind the glitter was a girl fighting to be enough. In time, she stopped speaking about her looks or early fame, but the silence spoke volumes. She had endured beauty culture at its most unforgiving, and it left scars. Maybe that's why she eventually left. But before vanishing, she staged one of TV's most unexpected reinventions. After nearly a decade out of the spotlight, Susan stunned casting directors in 1986 when she landed the role of Grace Van Owen, a tough, idealistic attorney in L.A. Law. The shy girl from the Partridge family had transformed, and she was just getting started. The obvious choice? Hardly. Her name raised eyebrows, and the executives hesitated. One casting agent recalled, they remembered the pretty teenager from the Partridge bus. They didn't see Grace Van Owen. But Susan changed their minds the moment she walked into the room. What followed was one of the most stunning reinventions in television history. Day wasn't just good. She was magnetic. She portrayed Grace with cool intelligence and deep emotional complexity. There was steel behind her stare, sorrow beneath her poise. Viewers were captivated. Critics were stunned. She won a Golden Globe in 1988 and received 3 consecutive Emmy nominations. Suddenly, Susan Day wasn't a former teen idol. She was a powerhouse. And perhaps what made her performance so resonant was that Grace Van Owen reflected the woman Susan had become. Elegant, principled, quietly fierce. The role wasn't just a career move, it was a reclamation. She had full control of her image, said a fellow cast member. No one was telling her how to smile, dress, or talk anymore. She wasn't Laurie Partridge playing pretend. She was Susan Day, and she had arrived. In that transformation, she accomplished what few child stars ever do. She transcended the character that once defined her. Maybe it's because she was willing to do what others wouldn't. She took risks Hollywood didn't expect. After L.A. Law, many assumed she'd lean into safe prestige projects. Instead, she dove into bold, controversial territory, not for scandal, but for substance. One of her first risk-taking roles came with 1981's Looker, a Michael Crichton sci-fi thriller about computerized beauty standards and digital exploitation. Day played a high-fashion model caught in a conspiracy that eerily foreshadowed today's CGI influences and algorithmic perfection. At the time, the film was too strange, too stylized. But in retrospect, it was prophetic, and Day hauntingly believable as a woman literally and metaphorically stripped of agency. She knew the themes were ahead of their time, said a producer. She didn't do it to be edgy. She did it because it mattered. Then came 1985's Echo Park, a gritty indie in which Day portrayed May, a struggling single mother who turns to stripping to support her son. The performance was raw, unglamorous, and unrecognizable from her wholesome past. Critics were split. Some weren't ready to see her outside the Partridge frame, but others praised her bravery. She made people uncomfortable on purpose, said a co-star. She was challenging the idea that beautiful women should always smile. These weren't career-defining hits, and she knew it. But they allowed her to explore womanhood in ways Hollywood rarely permitted. She wasn't chasing fame. She was chasing truth. That truth extended to her real life, too. In 1988, at the height of her LA law success, Day made a radical choice. She stepped away from public life and into quiet domesticity. That year, she married television executive Bernard Safransky, becoming a stepmother to his children. The wedding was intimate and low profile. No tabloids, no exclusives. From then on, Susan built a life beyond the cameras. No red carpets and less contractual required. No talk show appearances. No interviews. She didn't want to play the celebrity wife, said a colleague. She wanted a real life. And she found it. Those who visited their home described a peaceful haven. Family dinners, classical music, books stacked high. She became a fiercely protective stepmother, blending into school events and family outings without fanfare. While the world speculated about her whereabouts, she was living exactly how she wanted, offstage, away from the noise. And then, she vanished from the spotlight altogether. Not with scandal, not with ceremony. She simply declined roles, rejected press, and stopped showing up. By the early 2000s, she was entirely gone from the public eye. Friends say it was deliberate. The constant reinvention, the weight of visibility, it had exhausted her. She was tired, said one LA law castmate. Not just physically, emotionally. Rumor has it she turned down major roles, ones other actresses would have fought for, because they didn't align with her values, including one in HBO's Sex and the City. Industry insiders whispered that Susan Day was approached to play a refined, powerful New Yorker, a guest role written just for her. But she declined. The part involved flirtation, casual sex, provocative dialogue. She wasn't prudish, said one agent. She just didn't want to participate in a spectacle. She'd been ogled enough in her youth. She wasn't going back there. In saying no, Susan wasn't just rejecting a role. She was rejecting a narrative. She knew what her presence evoked. The teen idol in glossy posters, the idealized beauty. And she refused to be boxed in again. She said no, again and again. And then, she disappeared. In today's world of Instagram stories, reboots, and nostalgic documentaries, Susan Day is a ghost. No social media, no podcasts, no interviews, no selfies, not even the occasional cameo. Fans online constantly ask, "Where's Susan Day?" Some speculate she lives off-grid. Others believe she made a vow to never revisit her past, especially after the painful exposure from David Cassidy's memoir. Whatever the truth, she has become a true anomaly, a mystery in a culture that documents everything. She's remembered in reruns and vintage posters, but she offers no commentary, only silence. As one journalist put it, we all know her name. We all think we knew her. But the real Susan, she left us wondering. And maybe that's her greatest role yet. The woman who chose to vanish, not because she had nothing left to say, but because she'd finally said enough.